Hello, and welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. My name is Mike McKeever, and I am your host for the day. Our topic today is experimental theater. Now, before we introduce our special guest, I'd like to introduce our usual panel. The always wonderful Irish actor and actress and our very own producer. The very talented Karen Stevens, an award-winning actress and a writer. And of course, our own Bill Hirschman, who is a theater critic and the founder of Florida Theater on Stage. Now, as I said, our special guest today is Nicole Stoddard. She is producing artistic director of Thinking Cap Theater in Fort Lauderdale and a really wonderful director. Nicole, welcome here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So let's get right into it. Tell us about your theater company, what kind of work you do, the audiences that you play to, the mission of the theater, if you will.
Thinking Cap Theater is a theater company that was founded to fill what I saw as a void, I think, in South Florida theater about 5.5 years ago. We do work that you would typically find off-Broadway, or off-Broadway, say, in New York. Some of it more experimental in style, and some of it just reimaginings of classic pieces. So a good variety of work, but stuff that I think is a little fringier, a little more provocative.
That's great. It's just what the region needs, because there isn't a lot of that work being done here. But when you say experimental, do you mean the plays themselves, or do you mean your approach to them? How do you address the works that you pick and how you pick it?
Yeah, I think both. I think adventurous takes on classic plays, like our production of The Rover several years back. We did a punk reimagining of that piece. And then I think pieces that are experimental in form by playwrights who are emerging or mid-career playwrights here and abroad that really take chances with the structure of their plays. We did a play called Pool No Water by Mark Ravenhill a few years back, and it's a director's dream or nightmare because it's written like one giant monologue, and the director's task is to determine how to break that up. How many actors to have speak. So that's the sort of two facets of experimentalism.
I had the great pleasure of seeing Pool No Water, and you had a cast of what? Seven people. Terrific actors, and it was wonderful. I remember sitting there just really enjoying not only the words, because it was a beautifully written play, but the choreography and how you incorporated this one monologue through the mouths and through the actions of 7 different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, what's interesting is you have answered so many of the questions I was going to ask. in one question you asked her. Because to me, it's like, what niche are you really filling? You said off-Broadway. Is that the answer to the question? If I ask you what niche are you, then off-Broadway. But then you did the importance of being earnest. And that's not filling your mission.
Well, I think it's about the approach. I mean, I think part of Thinking Cap also is very intellectual. I've come from a very strong academic background. And so it's exciting to bring life to old pieces that people have seen over and over and over again, and they appreciate a fresh take.
You should explain what that fresh take is that you're...
To a young person who's never seen it at all. Imagine if their first exposure to Wilde is through our Ernest.
Well,
right?
that's why.
So let's talk about your Ernest. How are you going to make the importance of being Ernest different? How would you know that you've done this show. What was your take on it? How did you address it?
We approached it with a 1970s disco mindset, and it allowed the piece to be a lot of fun, but I think also very meaningful and pointed and speak to our mission with issues with race and sexual politics at the time. We were able to kind of have fun and I think make some valid statements about the period.
Which includes certain casting decisions, correct?
Yes, we cross-gendered several roles that aren't typically cross-gendered. Cecily, Jack Worthing, and also Miss Prism. And we had 3 black actors in our cast as well, which I think fits well with the 70s approach.
I agree. That's nice.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background? You said you come from a strong academic background. Can you just elaborate a little bit and tell us about?
Yes, my academic background that I may never stop being a student, I fear. But yes, so undergraduate, I studied theater as a undergrad, and I went on to do a master's degree in theater at Trinity College in Dublin. And then I started teaching and decided I wanted to go back to school, so I started a PhD program in English with a specialization in drama, and I may never ever finish. I hope. We'll see.
Oh.
But it's been a long process. So coursework is done, comps are done, and now I'm dissertating if I can stop having children long enough to actually finish writing this book.
But
yes.
tell us about how that background plays into some of your choices, both artistically. You mentioned the Rover. You should explain to people what the Rover was.
Sure. Yeah. I think in school, I always felt this pressure to become a professor, and I felt really creatively stifled. And so I think I took it's basically a lot of dramaturgical background that I have. I think I took that and I thought, how can I take some of these old pieces that would really never get done? I mean, very rarely do restoration plays get done, for example, a 17th century, 18th century play, unless it's Shakespeare. How can I take what I've learned and actually put this into practice and approach it in ways so people don't think these are just dead dinosaurs?
So you took the Rover, which was a play written about the same time as Shakespeare.
Later, a little bit later,
By the first
70s, yeah.
major woman playwright
Yes.
in England. And then you took that script and you did interesting things with it.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll continue to do periodically, not necessarily every season, because it's been a few years since the Rover even. Yeah. But yeah, we definitely are thinking ahead to the future and wanting to keep that part of our mission alive.
Yeah.
How do you pick the plays that you put up? How do you find them? Do you go to New York and look for new work? Do you just do a lot of research?
I don't get to go to New York very often. I do. There are definitely playwrights there and a couple of theaters that I'm particularly drawn to that do more experimental work. And a lot of times it's just through a lot of reading. I started writing a blog several years ago that I'm not able to really maintain anymore because it's hard when you're actually running a theater company and a venue. But I met a lot of people that way, so people continue to send you scripts.
Right.
And a lot of times to find pieces, through other companies abroad even. I look, I think, abroad as much as I do here for inspiration for future programming.
So how exactly,
I'm
sorry, how exactly do you juggle all of these responsibilities and retain the clarity that you need to be creative?
I think in a lot of ways, doing theater is my refuge from my life that is otherwise really ordinary, but very, very busy with 3 young children. So I think, and it's also a lot of sleeplessness. I get a lot of inspiration when I'm running on the treadmill or in the middle of the night. I think it's just, and you also make sacrifices. If you love something and it excites you, then
exactly.
The tiredness is not as big of a deal if you're able to keep doing something that makes you feel great.
There's a saying: if you want to get something done, ask a busy person.
I had a mentor in grad school tell me that, and she said that, and it was something like a bell went off. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm that person, because people are always giving me more to do,
You
and
just
somehow
mentioned
we get
something
it
though
done.
that you just passed over that's really important. That's a major piece of this, and that is in the last X number of months, you have created a brand new venue out of an old church across the street from the hospital in downtown Fort Lauderdale called the Vanguard Sanctuary for the Arts.
Yes,
is that right?
Correct.
Talk a little bit about that whole process and how that is both separate and connected to Thinking Cap.
Sure.
Well, the space itself, I'd love you to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would say, for starters, about 5.5 years ago, whenever I decided to start a theater company, I had these sort of twin ideas at the same time of something called the Vanguard, but and a theater company called Thinking Cap, right? And at the time, there was no foreseeable hope of just having a venue appear out of the sky. So we started as a traveling troupe, basically, right, of theater artists, and we were working out of a venue called Empire Stage. And over time, we felt we would love to have a place where we could program more and do more. And so we found this abandoned church that had been sitting empty for at least 5 years.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was the building was built back in the 30s, and it most recently had been a hair salon, and a lot of our patrons had their hair done in the same space that they're now getting to watch some really fun theater. Yeah, so it was Fantasy Hair Salon for about 10 years, and then it sat empty for about 5, and then we spent like 18 months renovating the space.
And so but you're also going to share it, in a sense, with other companies. Is that correct?
I think, as folks approach us and are interested in working out of the venue, that's the idea, is that it can be a home for other companies. There has been a huge growth in theater in Broward County, but I think that even though there are other venues around, that it's another one can't hurt right now, because there are a lot of younger theater artists starting companies and looking for
it's a beautiful space. It's a great place for an up-and-coming new theater company. Say I have an up-and-coming new theater company. I want to find out about renting or leasing the space at Vanguard. How do I go about doing it?
You can call me or email me. Our information's on the website at vanguardarts.org, and we can talk about that. Next year, we definitely have availability in 2016.
And also an audience I'm sure the audience wants to know where you are and how we can get to you. So we'll certainly put your website up. Has the address on there?
Yes.
Et cetera, yes.
There you
That's
go.
very good.
Just by nature of the type of work you do, you've cultivated that rarest of things, a very young audience.
I was just, yes.
How do you go about maintaining that?
Yes.
Is it just a matter of the programming you do, or do you market specifically to younger audience goers?
We haven't really had a lot of money for marketing. We're hoping that in the future that we'll be able to spread our wings and do a better job of that. But I think a lot of it is through having young people in the company and programming and the word of mouth, and people finding out that there are young theater artists down here that want to see work that excites them, and so I think that it's been largely through that.
I was very pleased when I was there. Every production, I'm surrounded by young people. Wow! Everything we're doing now is trying to get them to go to the theater, and you've done it.
Right. Trying.
You've done it, really. So you're doing something right. And it certainly is, the audience that we're all trying to get a hold of. You've gotten them. But actually, I must say, too, I've seen many seniors as well. So it's a little of everything.
I've been fascinated by the shows that you've put on at Vanguard since you started there, including the first one when it wasn't done and you did it in the parking lot, which was church.
Yes.
The last 4 or 5, 6 shows have been, each one seems to be stylistically different from the next one. You did a wonderful Vida in Virginia. Just each show seemed to be different.
Patsy Cline.
Always Patsy Cline.
I was just going to say that. How about?
But they are so different. What do you see as the overarching, unifying?
I think that we definitely want the Vanguard to be a place where we can surprise people. They want to know what's coming next because they could never guess it themselves.
Yeah.
So variety is the spice of life. So I think that the eclectic season to kick things off was very much intentional. But I think also that it's let us sort of open up the possibilities for what we can program. So the Thinking Cap can still, as the resident experimental company at the Vanguard, can stay true to its mission. And we can also have the Vanguard as a producing entity itself, which allows us to do stuff that Thinking Cap would not necessarily do.
And when you say that, that's more commercial, more accessible fare?
Sure, exactly.
So solo artists, musicians.
Yes, it's great because you know, and where we are, what they call the South Andrews corridor on Andrews Avenue, there are people living all around us, walkable distances, and they come into the theater and they say, I live 5 blocks away, or I live around the corner and I didn't even realize that you were here. And some of these people are artists and have approached us about bringing in like a live concert series and using the space to rehearse for dance and all sorts of stuff. So it's great that people see the versatility of the space.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Was that originally your vision, was to have these 2 separate entities but intertwine with each other? Or did that just kind of develop over time?
I mean, the idea is for the 2 concepts of a theater company and a space called the Vanguard happen at the same time. But like I said, at that moment, I was hard to believe that it would ever actually come true. And
Isn't that marvelous?
I guess if you wish hard enough and you work hard, it can happen. So I'm very grateful for that. But I do think that, you know, Thinking Cap is there, and certainly just because Thinking Cap is the resident company at the Vanguard does not mean anyone else could not be there. But I think that we do want to have, you know, stand-up comedy and all sorts of things that you would find at a neat downtown venue in another big city.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Nice. Have you found there's any branding confusion between Thinking Cap and Vanguard, or has that been smooth?
You know, we didn't really come out of the gate trying to sharply distinguish this, and partly that is probably my fault, just for the busyness of being the first time opening a venue, you know. And I was also many months pregnant when we opened back in February of last year, and so. I think it's something that we will be looking at in the future going forward, how we can make this distinction between what are Vanguard shows and what are Thinking Cap shows, or if there's benefit to something like a co-production, but so that there can be an identity for each as a producing entity.
Sure, sure.
I mean, and that's sort of my own protective point, I guess, with Thinking Cap, because I think our mission is unique. And so I don't want that to be watered down and lost, where Thinking Cap will just do anything.
Right, and it's very specific. Thinking Cap's mission and the work that they do is so specific. I wouldn't say specific, but it definitely has a feel to it.
Yes.
Where if you do more commercial things, you want to make sure that the audience coming to a Thinking Cap show aren't going to be surprised by something that's not a Thinking Cap show.
Or vice versa.
Well,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
In her program, it does say experimental, provocative, and shows with social conscience. Am I right?
Yes.
So I must have been impressed.
Yeah, I love that. Look, I said I wasn't sure I could remember it, and I wrote it, but I misnoticed it.
No,
I could not have said it better myself.
I really like that a lot. What's missing,
Right?
is, so you don't teach. You're a one-man band, aren't you? I mean, really, you're running the whole show yourself. You'll have a board of directors. You don't.
We do have a board of directors, and our company has grown. I mean, we have a managing director, Mark Duncan, and we have production stage manager Carrie Hart. When it started, it was just me, and when I was my own stage manager, and I couldn't enjoy watching as much and truly directing, because I was calling line. That's me. Oh, you need a stage manager? That's me. I was wearing all of the hats. Did you need a drink? Let me get you some water. Okay. So you know, now we do. I mean, we have a managing director. We have Scott Douglas Wilson, who was going to launch education for us, is going to be moving back to Ohio for a little while, so he's going to take on a new hat as literary manager, which he can do remotely, and is very well suited for. And we have a community outreach director now, who has been wonderful, helping Leah Barsanti-Roth, who has helped with all of the in-kind donations and things for opening night since we've had the space. And we have all sorts of run crew, and we actually I have a team, which is what has allowed me to keep my head above water with the infant. So it's been great.
Yeah, have you delved into the fundraising end of theater entrepreneurship?
We are starting that now. We are in the process now, and we're working with a grant writer to start that finally.
You are
It's
not
about
for
time.
profit, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll help.
Yes.
Of
for
course,
sure.
with that.
Do you, because I know you direct all the shows there, do you What's your favorite thing? I would imagine it's directing the shows,
Yes.
or are you really starting to take a shine to being a producer as well?
I mean, I think I was drawn to start the company to direct, not to produce. It just is sort of by default, as the person starting it, I get to be producer.
That's
right?
how it works.
So, but I've had help with producing now too, as the company has grown. And this past season, we had 2 others direct besides myself, which was great. So out of our 6-show season, I will have directed 4. Mark Duncan directed 1, and Margaret Ledford directed another. And that's something else that we will continue to do going into future seasons, because now that I think that Thinking Cap has been around long enough, we've forged a lot of strong relationships with other great artists, and people are excited to direct the kind of work that we do.
Sure.
So we will have more directors besides just myself.
I would imagine not only is it challenging and exciting for audience members, it's got to be the same for the directors and actors who work on these pieces.
Yes, for sure.
I wondered about, the if you build it, they will come kind of concept, in that there are theater companies out there that desperately try to figure out what a particular audience wants, and will skew whatever they do to fit that audience
Right.
and bring them in. But it sounds like you and several other companies we can name have decided this is what we want to do, and we are hoping to attract an audience. Is that an accurate perception?
I mean, I think obviously theater history has proven that if you make it, they will come doesn't work. I mean, this we know, right?
Right.
But I think it kind of goes back to the variety concept, and we always try to look at shows and see what worked and see what didn't. But I think it's the time of year. I mean, I think there are so many variables that just we could do a really, really great piece. And it could be in August and do poorly, or we could do an experimental piece in November, and it could do surprisingly well. So I think the formula that we're working with is just to continue improving our production values, and to keep it mixed up so that people have options.
And it's always important to do good work. You do good work, that's what brings the audiences in.
Yes.
Let's talk about the actors who are watching.
Oh, yes.
And you're accepting photos, casting. How do they find out about what's casting? Or when it's casting?
We typically do season auditions once a year, this time of year actually. So I would say watch our website, find us on Facebook at thinkingcaptheater.com, and you can join us for auditions.
Yeah.
So, are there? I know it's early days to be talking about long term, but do you have any long term vision for?
Yes, I mean, I think long-term visions are to add to what we're already doing. So we will continue to have a full season of work, but I think to branch out into some community outreach programs that I've wanted to do for a long time, but they take a lot of work and they also take funding. So I think reaching out to young adult audience, even younger than what we're already reaching out to,
Wow.
Teenagers in particular, and I think also I have a background in hospice work, and I've wanted for a long time to start a program about plays on death and dying and collaborate with Broward Health across the street from the Vanguard, and be able to do something for families of patients who are in hospice. And I have a collection of plays that I've been accumulating that speak to that issue. So I think, some of those feel-good aspects of that Thinking Cap has the potential to do, I think I'm most excited to, in the future, branch out in that way, beyond just doing,
Do you think
putting
you'll
on shows.
stay in Broward? I'm talking long term.
Yes.
It's home.
Yeah, it's home now for sure. We actually, now we have a space to live in, so.
A beautiful space.
Yeah.
It's a black box. You configure it different ways.
Yes, and it's been configured, I think 4 different ways in the past year since we opened, but it's truly convertible. I mean, it's a true black box.
Excellent.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Whenever I come in, I never know. what
Right?
it's going to look like.
Right?
Which is great.
But when you're there, I do say, where should I sit?
Yeah, right? That's right. Exactly. Right?
Sorry.
Well, here's a question. You juggle a beautiful family. You juggle work as a director. You juggle work as a producer and as the person who runs Vanguard. In a simple question, how do you do this? And you still look good. I'm so confused. Are there days where you just want to bang your head against the wall?
Yeah,
or-
you know-
Definitely don't look sleep deprived.
Well, you know,
That's what she
I think it's kind of like training for a race, like being in theater. And so, you know, you have downtime. We have downtime in the daytime, and we work at night. It just, I think somehow, I don't know. It just always works out. I always feel like a one-handed wallpaper hanger. but somehow it always works out.
Excellent.
It's theater. It's magic.
Yeah, actually,
That's right.
It is.
It is.
You
It
know,
is
we all
magic.
need T-shirts that say that.
That's right.
One-handed wallpaper hanger.
Well, she does
Right.
it with a baby in a
I
sling.
did. I did. I had Genevieve with me through the whole process for A Map of Virtue, and she was right there in the sling. And luckily, I have good babies.
I'm sure that helps.
She did her first 10 out of 12 at 3 months old.
Wow.
Right?
Excellent.
I've had actors who haven't been able to go that long.
I
so-
know, right?
Well, this has been great. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
all the amazing success that you've enjoyed these past few years and continued success. I know that you're going to do great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Stoddard with the Thinking Cap Theater at the Vanguard Sanctuary. And thank you to my wonderful panel. As always, it was a blast spending a half hour with you all. And thank you for joining us here at Spotlight on the Arts. If you want to know about anything that's happening in South Florida Theater, just go to floridatheateronstage.com. I'm Michael McKeever. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.